Hello, everyone. Hello, Linda.
Hello, hello, hello.
So much has happened since we last spoke because of
Oh,
the
I know.
the rate of events with this current governance. So, what have you been
So
seeing?
apparently, Trump has agreed that he'll go for funding TSA and not including ICE. I don't know what made him change his mind. Maybe all. I think the senators are getting hell from their constituents, and some went in and told him, "Look, dude, you're going to have to come up with some retrieval because they're not going to give you uh, your ICE money."
Yeah, that's what I tuned into as well. And I mean, the first thing I heard was that the senators just didn't want to do it. And in fact, I read something about how Kennedy and someone else were upset because they had a plan and he said no. And so then Kennedy said, well, we should have done it because it was the best thing we were going to get. So obviously they recalibrated. And to me, though, this is mirroring exactly what I was been saying for months, that once we got into the spring of 26 and like from here forward, it's just one thing after another where he tries to get a result. And like in this case, it's these people are his support system and they're saying no. But you know why they're saying no? Because they're better at reading polls than he is. They know that it's not a good plan. This whole idea that
Yeah.
he's trying to push. I mean, it's almost like he says, my gut feeling. There's no gut feeling. It's deserted him. He's lost in space. This idea of sending the most unpopular thing in America now is ICE, and he sends them to the airport. Like, how is this helpful? They can't really, they can't really help the TSA people
And they're
to.
just standing around drinking coffee. And the TSA is furious because they're getting paid and TSA isn't. But also, Delta announced to the White House, we're not doing any special agreements with your congressmen or senators until you put this TSA through. Because I guess they do some prime booking them on flights and stuff. They said, we're not doing it until you do this. Then all of a sudden, Trump said he was going to agree to something. So there you go.
Well, thing is, this guy, he's such a pathological liar that uh, don't count out the fact he'll come out and say that it was his idea all along, that he's been telling the senators to get it done and they weren't doing it. He's just the biggest traitor. I've never seen anything like this. And so, and then of course he knows that they can't, they say, well, no, he's lying, then they, in a way, work against themselves. So, uh,
Yeah.
yeah, very possible. Uh, Same with the Iran war. He's saying that, that Iran badly wants to do a deal, and I'm not sure that that's true at all. I think there might be a half truth in it where Iran is probably lying a little bit too, or maybe quite a bit.
Well, he's looking
But
foolish. He's demanding these things, and then they go, yeah, whatever.
yeah, yeah. Well, and the other thing is that logic would tell you that if, and it's true, they're sending more military assets to the area. So that does not signal leaving the area, which means you're probably looking at more time, weeks probably, before they
Right.
pull back. But in the meantime, you're basically entrenching high gas prices because even when you do leave, it doesn't mean that the prices will go down right away,
Right.
especially unless the Strait of Hormuz opens, and that's their leverage point. So see, he's created a, a catch-22 for himself because if he were to totally obliterate Iran with ordnance, then you have a broken regime that is still able to shoot off drones and things like that. Plus, you could have a huge um, refugee problem. In other words, what I heard is that they don't want to do that either. The White House knows that uh, totally, destroying them would be a really bad plan. But not doing it is also a bad plan because here we are. He starts
Yeah.
this thing and gas prices are up, and now he's got no statement to make about the economy. He kept saying, I'm going to bring everything down, and gas was this big thing. It's not a winner. And when I see that his chart thing is getting worse, it's not getting better, it's getting
It is.
worse.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's
Thank you for
getting
the good
worse.
news.
Yeah.
What's gas price like where you're at?
Uh, about It's over 5 already. It's between 5 and
It's
6.
6 something out here. It's going
Yeah,
on 7 in some stations.
the West Coast is always more, but California is even more expensive than Washington. Yeah, so that's why. But it's not gonna do you any good, particularly in an election year. Honestly, this guy, I think he's really lost this. He's lost the plot because uh, normally you just wouldn't do this. But see, there might be also a thing. Not do this in an election year. I mean, but there might be a thing that Netanyahu and Trump really have different goals. And Netanyahu sounds like he doesn't want to leave at all. He wants to keep bombing. So Trump probably got fooled by thinking, "Oh, I got to join in, and when we win, I'll look like a hero." But he totally misjudged it because
But here's
Iran
the
is
other
not
thing is you
Venezuela.
can't trust on any media. You don't know what's true. But apparently, according to the latest information, Israel lifted its ban on people because you would have to serve 5 years in jail if you shared a photo like of Tel Aviv. And they had a press person there, a woman with long dark hair, and she was filming it. It was terrible. Just a lot of bombing has happened.
Yeah, no, it's a really bad situation, and Netanyahu apparently needs to keep the war going because he would be potentially going to jail if the
That's
war
what
ends.
Trump is doing. That's why he's so desperate to cut off our ability to vote because he knows when he loses midterms, he's off to jail.
Well, I don't know about that. Not while he's. Do you think because Trump
They can put him in jail for being a treason for committing treason.
Trump?
Trump.
Yeah, but who would do that?
It's Congress and the Senate and the United States public.
Well, the problem is the Department of Justice gets involved in that, and it's his Department of
Well,
Justice.
see, they'll already get rid of Pam Bondi. They're going to do the trials as soon as they and Newsom talks about it out here all the time. As if I get in as president, first thing I do is get rid of all his executive orders.
Oh, you're
And we
talking.
start the process of impeachment, and we impeach Bondi, we impeach Patel, we impeach everybody.
You're talking about 2028.
No, 26.
Yeah, but 26, Newsom has nothing to say about
No,
20.
no. Well, yeah, he's talking about 20, but he was talking about midterms.
Right,
If the blue takes over, they can do all these things. That's
they
what he said.
can, but even if they say they won the Senate and the House, you can't convict the guy. You need 67 votes. It's not going to happen. Well, I'm back to what you once said. You told me I don't see him in jail. I'm telling you, he's not
Well,
going to jail.
I think he might kick off before
Well,
then.
that's more likely. Yeah, but the idea that while we're in a GOP administration, you can bring anybody to account, it's really tough because you have those thresholds. Which, by the way, they're helping us a lot because one of the things going now, he's trying to get that SAVE Act. He can't without 60 votes, and the Republicans don't want to break that because they know if we're on the
They
other side
know
of this.
when they break it, then it's good
Exactly.
for us. Yeah.
Exactly. So therefore, that's helping us, which is another thing. The other pattern that seems to be emerging, which fits with the chart too, because when you start hearing, okay, well, it's his people, support system, they're saying no. He's also getting some defections. And apparently the Supreme Court is not going to give him the voting thing about getting rid of mail-in voting and all that. What I'm hearing is that they're going to vote against that. They're going to vote against him, in other words, right?
The one they just talked about the other day,
Yes. Yeah.
I'm hearing that they're all for his side. They think he's right.
The Supreme Court?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Well, what I was
Mark Elias was on MS Now and talked about how bad it was and how, all the ones that voted for him are doing his bidding. And they were leaning towards, yeah, you're right. We're going to have to. Maybe it's not specifically mail-in votes. It's something that came up that they listened to the other day. And they were totally pro, yeah, I see what you're saying. Like postmarks and stuff like that.
Well, I heard Elias describe it as that the swing people are going to be Roberts and Coney Barrett, and you couldn't tell 100%. All I can tell you is this. His chart is very poorly set up to get any kind of judicial ruling in his favor. And that, I mean,
Okay.
by the way, that would totally create a mess if they said, for this election coming up in 2026, now we're going to deny all the mail-in voting when all kinds of states are already printing ballots and
And
everything.
it's constitutionally the right of the state to decide how they want to do it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. My sense would be no, it's unlikely to happen. So then he's going to do what he did before. You remember that he was tweeting against the Supreme Court, insulting them, saying that they're an enemy of the people and all that.
Oh yeah, they're going to vote in favor of that Lisa Hunt. Is that her name? The one that with the Federal Reserve. They're going to say she can keep her job.
Lisa Cook?
And I also see them, it's interesting, they're keeping it on the back burner, but I do see them saying that he has no right to do the tariffs like this.
Well, that they've already kind of said, right?
Yeah.
That's already kind
But
of
they haven't formally announced it.
Yeah, well, time will tell, but my suspicion is that this court is going to, maybe in the longer term, do some damage to the Voting Rights Act and that kind of thing. But I don't think he gets what he wants, because he wants as much chaos as possible. If you introduce a thing like that, I mean, let's face it, lots and lots of people can't even find their birth certificate, right? Then they have to get a passport.
My mom was born in her house
Yeah, it's too complicated.
on
So
an Indian reservation.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't see it. I mean, all I know is that each week that is passing here, it's getting worse and worse, which, by the way, is primarily top level linked to the danger to his health too. You know, because people, when I post videos on the channel, they'll say, "Well, wait a second, you're talking about 2026, 2027, 2028. That's assuming he somehow hobbles his way there. His chart, he might not be there tomorrow. That's how bad it is with the way the
Yeah.
planets are. It could take him out, because when you see the planets that are afflicting him, also in conjunction with how he's looking, because he's not looking particularly healthy. You know, he looks like
Yeah.
a person that is.
Well, Pam Bondi was up there talking about how wonderful he is. She turned to look at him and he was
Yeah,
dead asleep.
I know exactly. Yeah. So I mean, the one drawback, which the way I've been framing it, it's probably looking like at least the earliest May, maybe, where you get a bit better situation in the Middle East. But the Iran chart, because people have asked about this, the Iran chart is not in a good place, because they have, it's actually interesting that one of the planets is exactly where Trump's is as well. So they're getting a lot of pressure. So usually that means that this year, no matter what, if you expect the people of Iran to be happy, they're not going to be, and neither will the leaders be. But it's a stretch from there to say you can knock the regime down. That I'm not so sure it would happen. Like much less likely.
So how about Israel's chart? Does it look okay, or is
Israel-
it under a lot of stress?
Israel is under a lot of stress until at least May. Now, the thing with Israel is that if you then tie it to Netanyahu has made this move at a really dangerous time, because I'm pretty sure, maybe this isn't true, but I think that he does have to have an election this year. I think it's
Yeah, October.
He can call it earlier, but he has to have it. It is not good timing. That is not good timing for him.
Yeah.
So my feeling is he loses that, and then that creates another problem, right? Maybe, but at least you have new leadership, and then you can start to do things.
I just can't get over how Trump thinks his word is the word that I'm going to primary all these people. I'm going to do. Nobody, that last big one when he was president the first time, and he said, he went out, he had all these people he wanted us to vote for. One person out of that whole group of people won. That was it.
Yeah, it's a pattern we've seen with him, that he tends to do better. We did better in the two general elections, but he does poorly when he's endorsing people, and especially now, because his endorsement, he's very unpopular. So the conventional.
Oh no, he said he's at 100%. He's never been so popular.
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, but
That's
but
what
again,
he said.
but that he knows, because if he believed that, wouldn't need to cheat. He wouldn't need to be doing all this, you know, talk about the Save Act. And, by the way, that Save Act that he wants is loaded with stuff that goes way beyond even what he tells you it is. Because he says, oh, it's just about voter ID. It's not. There are all kinds of,
No.
requirements that go far in excess.
And we don't want illegals to vote. We didn't let illegals vote.
But it's just remarkable that we've been in this zone. I'm hoping, and I think it's a pretty good guess that Neptune in Aries, where it is now, because it's been in Pisces since 2011, in that period from 2011 until now, because from now till 2038 it'll be in Aries, and lying became fashionable. Like this idea that you just say anything. Well, it could be, and politicians don't pay a price for literally making up stuff. This is likely to become less and less popular, and so for a guy like him, it becomes a problem because he thrives on just making stuff up. Just saying things that aren't true, and so we're suffering a lot because of it. Because when anything goes, you just make up stuff, and
Yeah.
that's how that goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The bell is tolling.
So Mullen got through. His cards were so bad, I wasn't sure he'd get through. He has really, and I almost felt, this is my feeling,
Who are you talking about?
Mullen, the guy from Oklahoma, the one that has
Oh,
a
yeah.
general ed diploma,
Mm-hmm.
and we used to be a plumber. He's going to run DHS. Anyway, but the cards were so bad for him. Sometimes that doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to get in. It can mean you're going to get in and you're going to wish you weren't. Because I think he's going to come in at a time all these restrictions are thrown at them.
Yeah, well, that was when I was looking at his day chart. He's one of those people that you can get the birthday, but you can't, I don't know the time. But the thing that I saw was that, first of all, I remember doing it in early March, and I could see that at the time of the confirmation, there was a dark, difficult energy, but he got through. But it did get dark because he almost, Rand Paul said, "Hey, you were saying that you were happy that my neighbor beat me up."
I know. That was a really good statement that he said.
It is horrible, but
Even though we all shamefully sat there because we were all, yay.
I know we wanted, yeah, more as much trouble as possible. But then he got in. But yes, he is definitely in that group. All like people like Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, Hegseth for sure. Yeah, there are like 7 or 8 of the people, including Mullen, RFK for sure. Although I don't know what that'll be, but RFK's in it. And the more we go toward the summer, the more this thing gets really, really thick. They're all under the same
Right.
high pressure. And I would say, I don't know what you're seeing with this, but my biggest concern would be how much damage do you think they're going to do to the overall world economy? Because this is affecting everything.
They've already done damage, and they've stolen so much money.
And
Did you
what
hear about the big scam that happened yesterday? Did you see how we went up initially almost 1,000 points in the stock market? Trump let his insiders and his oil people know to do this, like to buy out. He was going to make an announcement that would make it easier. And then what happened is Iran said, we will never negotiate it with you. And then boom, it dropped again.
Yeah, they definitely, I think he's manipulating the market for sure. But I also think he's simultaneously caught in a place where you can't do as much of that as you want. Like eventually, like in other words, right now it's 46,000, right? The way the situation is, the market is probably more likely to drop more points than it is to regain them. Even if you were to say, okay, yeah, we're leaving, whatever, which doesn't look that likely for a while. I have to warn you about that. In my opinion, it's going to be a while. But at the point where the U.S. exits and whatever, maybe it goes up a little bit, but I don't know that it recovers properly because
What might last for a while? The war?
the war, yeah, I don't think the war is going to end anytime soon. And so if the war is happening, oil prices are going to be unstable and probably high,
Yeah, they aren't going to let the U.S. through the straits. They let Spain ship go through today.
Yeah, but apparently, you know what they're doing? They're charging a fee. So they send the boats through the whatever it is, and it's not cheap. I heard
No, I
figures
heard it was
like
really
$1 million
expensive.
to get your tanker, to the other side, and it's cheap compared to the value of the oil, but they're taking advantage. But they're also up against the wall, right? And
They said they appreciated Spain for standing up for them. So I think Spain said to Trump, get out of there. You got no right to do that.
yeah, no, it some countries definitely said no. Even the UK said no. France said no. Germany, they didn't want to get involved, and he called them cowards.
So
But
did you ever look at the lady who's in France? Is she in France? Yeah.
oh, Marine Le
And they
Pen.
had something happen and her it looks like she could be voted out. She's the one that told Trump off. She's blonde, but she's with the right.
Marine Le Pen?
Is that her?
It-
She said some great stuff about Trump. She told him off.
Okay, I don't know. I haven't looked at that. No, but I'll take a
But
look.
yeah, it
Take a
looks
look.
like the left might win in France based on what's going on with her.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very. I think the takeaway, as I understand it, about all this is that right now we're in a very dicey situation because we're getting through to the other side, but it's going to be a while, and I'm thinking at minimum next year, and not even totally. And this mirrors zones when there's a lot of change happening, and you can get to the other side, but you see this kind of thing where okay, the right's going to come in, but then oh no, maybe it'll be left. Lots and lots of democracies are very divided. Israel is divided. The U.S. is divided. In Germany, they're fighting off, born again Nazis. It's a tough time, but also people see how these people operate. I mean, nothing better than just watching Trump and the GOP to think this is not the way to do it. Bad idea,
Right.
right? So, like for example, I looked into this, and in Hungary, the guy that is going to be battling Orban is ahead of him. He's ahead of him by
Oh,
10
by a
points.
landslide. Yeah.
Yeah. So the point is that you could get a lot of reform, but don't be in a big hurry to see things immediately stabilize themselves. And in a lot of ways, this is the mirror of the 1860s. We're literally in the zone right now when the war was being fought. We've got to
Yeah.
get to the other side, which I think is pretty interesting that the degree of Neptune that it reaches in 2028 is exactly the degree it reached in 1865 when the war ended, right?
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
interesting because the point is, too, the next government is 2028. I think people that assume you can have a big, big change before then, like Gavin Newsom can't be president until 2028, for example,
Yeah.
assuming that he becomes the one, which is
Actually, 2029, he can be voted in November, but he can't take office till January
till
20th,
2029, right?
2029.
But Newsom, I'll repeat what I've said about it in the past, that he's in a tricky zone between when he leaves. I think he leaves in November himself, and he even has pretty challenging energy this year and into the middle of
Yeah.
next year, right? Now, the thing with that is that what I do is I watch people like him to see how they're reacting. If you're under Saturn pressure and you look reasonably good, maybe a couple of hits, but pretty good, that's a great sign because once he gets into the middle of 27, then it's an like all
You
ahead
said
flank.
that before, I remember. I
Yeah.
see him clear sailing in 27,
Well,
looking really good.
then
What
very,
about in California? There's Solwell and Katie. What's her name? The woman with the board.
oh,
He's got the higher numbers, but they're really close.
I haven't looked at those two. I gotta study
Okay.
that more closely. I mean,
When you
there's so
have
many.
time, take a look, see, and
I
let us know.
I did another one that I want to look at a little more closely I have limited information, but it's pretty good. Is the Texas thing because it's apparently it's looking like Paxton may win, and Paxton would be a better opponent for Tallarico. If
Oh,
because,
win the runoffs.
win the
Okay.
runoff against Cornyn because Trump has also refused to endorse Cornyn, right?
Oh, I didn't know. He said he wanted something and then he would endorse you, but I haven't heard anything about Cornyn. So Cornyn's not on his happy list.
Well, Cornyn is too normal for him. Cornyn is a old-style Republican senator, and so then periodically people like that. It's the same with Lindsey Graham, even though Lindsey Graham in a way is much worse. But you notice Lindsey Graham. Remember in the campaign they were booing him, and because every so often Lindsey Graham is more normal, and his lawyer mind comes in and he'll say, "Well, that's not right." And then with Trump, if it's not 100% in, then the people that follow him, especially, they expect like a cult. You should just do what the dear leader says and never question anything. And Cornyn, at times, but he's still like 95% Trump. It's just that every so often he doesn't quite agree, and Trump gets furious because he wants complete, obedience. And
Yeah.
it's the thing that he's not going to get now, too. He's going to get
Oh
less
no, and he thinks he's king for a day. He thinks everybody loves him. He sat up there with a news conference and said his numbers are at 100%.
Well, I mean, they're not. They're not. In fact, what I've noticed is the real polls have him already pushing to the low 30s. Like he might end up in the 20s if he's not careful. That's how bad it is.
Yeah, I see him really down in the low 30s, but they're saying he's at 40%. I don't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, the tell is that if you look at his chart around election night, he's got Saturn in the wrong spot. It's a similar situation to what happened to him in 2020. Not good. You go into a thing
Patel?
like that this year, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's why I've been since 2024. I remember saying after the election, I took a look at Jeffries, Schumer, comparing it to Trump, just Trump, filtering everything through Trump, because basically that's the GOP these days. It's a Trumpy party. Trump then is not in a good place. If he gets there, of course, I realize that. That's fair. But the other two are in much better shape, much better. They've got a good situation. So, for the longest time, people were saying, yeah, the House for sure, but the Senate is too hard. Now they're saying, no, the Senate is starting to look possible, And
Oh, yeah.
that's when you filter through Schumer, Schumer's is better.
Well, so many people are just sick and tired of all this. You've seen all the Trumpsters up there saying, I was an idiot for voting for him.
Yeah, no, and I mean, and it's you can see the fracturing in so many places. Like today, I saw knucklehead Joe Rogan, because the man is a knucklehead. Now, like the thing that I could have said, well, seriously, Joe, like, I mean, come on, get a brain. Now he's talking to this guy and he's saying, oh, these white nationalists. He's saying things like they're trying to turn everyone they're trying to turn it into a ultra Christian thing, and he says that's not right. And but I thought, but they were saying this before. I mean, weren't you paying attention? Didn't you realize that this was the whole message that these people
Yeah.
were sending out? Now he doesn't like it. Well, he has millions of listeners, so when he's saying these things, not all of them, but a big chunk either will not vote because they'll be demoralized, or they'll vote against the GOP as a result, right?
I love it. I love it.
That's where media becomes a problem, which is this is the Trump thing, that you lump all these factors in that place where all the energy is in his chart, has to do with media, foreign countries, foreign wars, judicial decisions, and you see them all slowly getting worse and worse and worse, right? Because the
Yeah.
Supreme Court last year was giving him quite a bit, but now,
Yeah, they sure will. They were, and he thought he was king for a day.
yeah, well, he thought he was king for life. I mean, are you kidding?
Yeah.
He thought he had it made. But people that know politics well enough, I remember hearing someone say that, whenever Democrats, sometimes they win, like when Obama came in, then there was this thinking, oh, we'll control it for life. No, then it changes. Then Trump, oh, now we're going to rule for the next 40 years, which is what he wants. That's why he's trying to rig the voting so that it would be impossible to beat these guys, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't work that way. Political gravity returns, and then someone else comes in. And if you govern in this way, how are people going to back you? It's very unpopular. He's a very
Yeah.
unpopular president. He pretends to be popular, but he's not. It's very unfair.
Well, and America likes their constitutional right of voting.
No, of
They don't like
course.
someone to tell them no.
Of course, unquestionably, that's the way it is. And the thing that keeps him up is this is the great misfortune has been that going back now quite like decades, they let in people like they let Rupert Murdoch have way too much influence, and so on Fox News, like I'll give you an example. They're not even carrying the war, apparently. They're focusing on the SAVE Act and they're telling their viewers, oh, we got to get the SAVE Act passed because Democrats are liars and cheaters. The opposite of what is true. And their people don't hear the crazy stuff that Trump is doing about the war. So they're assisting him. And, if you ever think Rupert Murdoch, that guy, that man is a degenerate. I saw the Netflix documentary on him.
Yeah.
And he basically, his idea of life is there should be billionaires like him publishing garbage because that's what people like. We're going to publish, gossip and seedy stuff. And like, what kind of a society is that? This is the influence. And then he gets a hold of Fox News and now they're influencing everything as far
And
as.
they're not technically a news station.
Yeah, because think about it. If you had stations that were in the middle, they would be telling everyone the same thing. And then the MAGA people would diminish. They would go down because they would start to realize this isn't good. Look what he just did. Like, for example, with his thing, he goes in there and you tell me what kind of leader starts a war and within 2 weeks has to give them a lot of money. He gave them all, he reduced the sanction, he took them away so that you can keep the oil flowing so that the gas won't go down here. What kind of leader does that? A leader that, as George Bush would have said, he has no strategy, right? Remember
And
that
look
George
what he
Bush
did
is-
with Russia.
Yeah, Russia too. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Now they got money to fight Ukraine, although Ukraine is getting some major hits. Ukraine's doing pretty good.
They are. And don't forget that, again, this is the patience thing that I know that it's hard for people watching thinking, oh my God, this is so bad. Ukraine, Israel, whatever, Netanyahu, Trump. Remember we said for years, this is when it starts to get worse and worse for Putin also, because Putin's chart looks a lot like Netanyahu's. Very similar,
Yeah.
lots of energy opposing him, which on one level can be health, by the way, both of them. These are once you cross, let's say 60 years of age, if you have any problem, those planets can afflict your health, right? So that's
Yeah.
one level. But politically, Russia's in a terrible place. They're going to have more money, but if he were not already in a bad place, why is it true from what news has already published that the internet is down in Russia a lot, and apparently he's paranoid because he thinks there might be a coup happening against him?
Yeah, he's really afraid of that.
Yeah, and often when you see those patterns developing and you combine it with the astrology, you realize, well, this isn't getting better, it's getting worse because these planets are moving in, to oppose you more and more. So,
Wow.
but it's a matter of waiting it out, and for Zelensky, which I think he knows, he's got to wait it out. And as time is passing, it will improve. But I would say, especially the middle of this year, is looking pretty tricky, pretty tough.
Did you look up anything with that lady from Japan?
No, I didn't look her up, but I should because that was just a really embarrassing,
They're very mad at her in Japan
for what? For not replying to
for
Trump?
kissing Trump's rear and walking in honor of the guy that dropped the A-bomb on Japan.
Well, you got to realize that, a lot of this, it's just common sense politics. She probably knows how far she can go. Like, in other words, if she says to him, hey, why are you insulting me, and makes a scene, maybe he does something, to make things worse. This, by the way, is what happened in Europe. Part of the reason Macron and Starmer said no is because, and the guy in Spain, why do you think? Because they knew that if they said yes to Trump, their approval would go down. Starmer was low until he did this, and then it went up. He saw his polls go up when he said no to Trump. So they're following their own politics. This
They're
is the
following their
political
own
reality, right?
politics.
Even if you thought, they're really straight up men. No, if they thought that their numbers would go up by agreeing to Trump, they might have, but they didn't see that, so they said no.
Yeah, but and also this woman, I think she played him. I think she overplayed him. Trump tried to act like she cared what he thought.
Yeah, potentially, but that's the thing. The
But
US is-
she didn't give him what he wanted.
No,
He
no,
wanted chips, and she nodded, smiled, and she didn't give him nothing.
no. That's right. So that's
She said, "I'll give you chips," and she pulled down her pants and poo-pooed right there.
well. I mean, look with
There's
Trump,
your chips.
like with Trump. I mean, is it? I mean, he's like the perfect example of how to make friends and influence people. You spend the whole time insulting people, and then when you need their help, now you expect them to help you. That doesn't work well.
I
You gotta be
know.
nice to
And then
people.
he tries to act like, oh, they're begging me. Iran is begging me. They want to do a ceasefire. I don't know if I feel like it yet. He's so full of manure.
Yeah, he lies. He lies all the time. That's the standard operating system with Trump. Pretty much any
He's a
person with a brain
professional
knows
liar,
that.
too,
Yeah,
because he knows
professional.
how to spend things. And then
Yeah,
if he
no.
doesn't like what you asked, who are you with? You people are terrible people.
Yeah, no, and he does the classic technique is the very congruent lying with an aspirational mode. So he'll say, "No, this is only temporary. Prices will go down." But then you start thinking, maybe not this time, buddy, because this is looking more complicated. Remember how he always says, "We're gonna have a healthcare plan in 2 weeks." That never come. He pushes it
No.
out, right? Sounds like he's really confident. And when you're doing smaller games, this can work well to fool people and get away with it. On this level, especially when you start wars, you're in a different situation. And
And
so,
people have their families out there. You know how many emails I get with people with their sons and daughters on a ship out there? It's terrible.
yeah, no, and I mean, this is the thing where I would be making ads for the election, showing him saying things and just put this man is a professional liar. He always does this. He tells you this. It's not going to happen. I mean, he said, "I'm going to lower prices on day one."
I know.
Really? I'm going
Oh,
to
and
end the
then
war.
Hedgehog,
Day one.
Hedgehog said, we don't have tomahawks. We ran out of tomahawks because Biden gave all our tomahawks to Ukraine. Biden never gave any tomahawks to
No, they just
Ukraine.
say things. Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. And
But when in doubt, blame Biden.
no, he's another one though. See, this is the thing that it is distinctly possible that one of the things that will happen as we go into the middle of the year and into next year is that he may change, he may fire a lot of these people if he's still the president because their charts are in terrible shape. Like Hexeth is one that is could happen, at any
Oh,
point.
good.
And I know that these type of transits vibrate this way because look what happened to Christine Ohm. That was the pressure of the Saturn on her, so she lost her job. And Pam Bondi is still in that zone. Bondi's gets a little better for a bit, and then it gets worse again.
Oh,
Returns.
good.
Yeah. So
Yeah, well, Christy Nome, I said this on the show. You might have said this too. I said that whole bull of him offering her a position was just to tide the road so she doesn't pitch a fit yet. He said, I'm going to make you blah, blah, blah. And I kept having a visualization of her walking because she's going to work under Miller, who she hates, and Hedgehog. And I kept see them tell her, oh, yeah, you're in the back in that cubicle. And here's a box of files you can
yeah,
go
yeah,
through.
yeah. No, and gotta be fair about the fact that yes, she's a terrible person for the job, all kinds of reasons. And from what I uh, researched, he did approve all that money that she spent.
That's what I heard. The rumor is he did.
He
He
did.
said he didn't, but
That's
yeah,
right. He
whatever.
betrayed her. He totally betrayed her. So he plays this game where, while he's got enough of a power zone, he knows that you can't contradict him. If he says, "Well, no, it's her fault. She can't." If she comes out and says he's a liar, that'll end her career. So then she doesn't say it. But
She
there
doesn't say
may
anything.
there may come a time when everybody turns into Margie Taylor Greene. You got to be really careful. You start
Yeah.
telling the truth because once you realize your seat maybe is going to go down the drain. Now we're going into an election cycle where he can say all he likes. If you're looking at polls where you're 10 points down or whatever it is, what advantage is there in maintaining, this perspective that the orange menace can't do anything wrong? He's doing it constantly. He's horrible.
Inside Info is saying that Corey told people who bid on certain things for ICE, they were, contractors. And he said, if I don't get a kickback, you're not going to get this contract. He's totally denying it happened. but I get a feeling they're going to be able to prove it happened.
No, this whole group, uh, the outcome is slowly falling apart, and some of them are going to end up facing the law later, right? And but at the point where, the statute of limitations won't be in play, and yeah, it's incredibly risky because they're not just arrogant and stupid; they're doing things that are illegal, and that can give whoever's president. I mean, I would just tell my attorney general, if they broke the law, I don't care, just go with it.
Well, I think that Corey guy was thinking he was ruling the ship. I think she's sort of I don't feel her being as cruel as Corey is.
That's possible. Yeah, although you already know from her past that she's pretty bad. She's
Well,
pretty,
yeah, she could shoot puppies in the face.
and goats.
I loved what that Republican said to her.
Tell
You
me,
know, I
sir.
worked on a farm, and you don't take a teenager dog and expect that they're going to be able to do this and that. And then you don't take a sheep that all of a sudden you decide's no good. You didn't neuter that sheep. You know better. He really gave her a what for.
Well, I mean, and he could have followed it by saying, and then on top of that, then you write a book about it and you tell people this is a good thing. Like, do you know that you're in politics? Do you understand that maybe this is going to be a little bit unpopular?
What's
to make statements?
interesting is how Trump picked up the phone and told, was it Kennedy? Yeah, he told Representative Kennedy, I never approved any kind of money for commercials.
Yeah, but there. I actually believe her, even though she's also another liar. But I believe that she worked it through with it. It just seems like too much money for that to be. I don't know. It seems a
To
little
be a
bit.
fraud, yeah.
Yeah, it makes no sense. He would have gotten word, and because
Well,
then
anybody in the business of giving her the money would have had their eyes wide open.
exactly. So I
It's
suspect
pretty much done for her, by the way. I feel.
uh, almost certainly, yeah. I mean, there
And
are
Corey's not having anything to do with her.
no, there are things that when you do them, they can tarnish you, for forever. Much like some of these men that are implicated in the Epstein files. It's hard to come back from some of those things, or maybe you can come back, but you might be looking at 5 years or 7 years or longer because it does so much damage to your public image. So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
But the kickbacks these people are getting while they're sitting there in office, taking a percentage of the money for them, it's terrible.
Yeah, no, it is, and I mean it's such a bad look when you're spending. Like, look at this war, billions and billions, and then they tell you, well, we have no money for healthcare. We have money for this kind of stuff. I mean, so the way I see this so far, I mean, let's see where we go. But what do we got here? We traded one Ayatollah for another Ayatollah, and at the cost of billions of dollars. And now the new Ayatollah is younger than the previous Ayatollah. How is this an improvement?
I know. Hey, listen, did Qatar ever ask for their plane back? I know they're supposed to be furious at Trump.
Oh, well, I don't know. No, I don't know if they have or not, but that's a good point. That's a good point because the problem now is that I've actually heard from people via email telling me that in Egypt, there are people in Egypt that are very upset because they're suffering as well through the fact that the region is at war. And so it's making everyone really nervous, because Iran is shooting at everything, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
And then it's blocking fuel and all kinds of stuff.
yeah, no, it's a tough situation. And even though Hegseth and Trump are always bragging about the power of the American military, because it is very strong. But one of the things that I heard that I thought, you guys sound a little unprepared. This thing where they're using really expensive equipment to knock down the drones. So then you run out of that, but there are so many more drones because they're easier to manufacture. So they were trying to learn from Ukraine because Ukraine has been battling for years. So they've developed this drone technology. How can this happen to a military this big? I mean, you got to go in prepared to be able to fight the enemy with what they have. I mean, what are you going to do if Iran keeps shooting drones? You got to be able to shoot them down. Otherwise, they'll blow up oil facilities and you'll create, world chaos. It's
Yeah.
basic stuff. I mean, maybe the military is strong, but the management is brutal. It's really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's terrible. So,
I don't think they're going to vote yes on that $200 billion to go to. I just don't see it.
It's an you're I haven't looked at that too closely, but I would put that in the same category as the same zone being affected in his chart, and so then the chances of denial on all kinds of
Or
fronts,
going up.
like
Because
events like
also, he doesn't explain, they don't give them any satisfaction of where's the money we already gave you.
oh yeah, no, for sure,
They don't let them know where that money is.
for sure, and yeah, it's not a good thing. But again, it's as expected. The drawback to anything we say here is that we gotta hang in there. We gotta
Yeah.
see it through. I mean, sometimes, by the way, this happens in personal charts that you can use better or worse strategies when you're having whatever cycle it is, right?
Yeah.
But I've used this even for myself. Sometimes you just wait it out. You just say, I know when it's going to end. So I'll hang in there, knowing that
I
conditions
just don't
change.
want to see our American soldiers getting killed.
Oh well, I know it was just, but I mean, hopefully as few as possible.
There's
But
a mass exodus. They're not announcing it. There's a lot of people that are going AWOL and conscientious objectors. Yeah, they don't want to die for this. That a war they don't even know what they're doing.
I know that when I laugh sometimes because you call it Mercury Gatorade, but I got to tell you, when you start a war under Mercury Gatorade and void of course moon,
Yeah,
it's not at minimum. What happens with a combination like that is it doesn't turn out the way you expected.
yeah,
Plain and simple, right? Because I'll notice, for example, even a Mercury retrograde thing, that can be the drawback that, for example, you may have to return something and exchange it. It kind of makes you do the extra step, right? So for a big move like that, it is much better to wait till it's direct and apparently, by the way, apparently what happened there, which seems like it's probably true, is that part of the problem for the US was that they went in and they didn't want to start the war. They followed Israel in. You know how Marco said that? He was probably telling the truth because apparently their plan wasn't to do anything for weeks, but Trump followed Netanyahu in there. And when you do that, it means you're getting ahead of your planning, which means that's probably part of the reason it didn't go as well as it should have.
right. He was shocked. I love that. That was a surprise to him.
To who?
How good Iran hit back.
Oh, yeah, no, well, of course. But I mean, it's the thing is, it's a country with more than 90 million inhabitants. They have spent decades creating the type of government that is not at all like Venezuela or like, for instance, in Iraq. Once you got rid of Hussein, the whole thing falls apart. Not in Iran. Iran is a layered, bureaucratic, but very ideological, radical, regime. So you're not easily going to bring that down. It's much,
Right.
much harder. And the last thing you want to do, you don't want to start sending lots of ground troops. That's crazy. That's completely
I know.
crazy.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't see ground troops, but maybe there will be, but I don't see it.
You don't see them going in? Well, that's good. That would be a welcome thing.
He does a lot of puffing. I remember when I was divorcing my last husband, and his attorney said something to my attorney. I'm like, what? What's that about? She said it's called puffing. They act like they're king for a day, and they have all this. He didn't have nothing.
Do you feel like they'll, because they're sending in the equipment and manpower for that island, that famous island where Iran has all their oil. Do you feel like that might happen or not? Because that's a key thing.
Where's the island?
It's called Karg Island. It's this island where I think they refine their oil, or it's really critical for their oil production and oil distribution.
And the United States is thinking about going there and marching on the ground.
Well, yeah, because they would have to go in and take control of it. That would put a lot of pressure on Iran because then they wouldn't be able to sell their oil or produce it, or it would be a.
I see them being able to fight back viciously. Bad move if we do that. That's what I heard.
Well, we'll have to. I guess we'll have to find out. As one thing that I'll say about that too is that I mentioned that this week is hard, but next week is no better. It's very similar because there's still a lot of pressure on. So guaranteed, that this keeps going for him. I mean, the way, if you go through his chart, but the president has a lot to do with how the country's doing. And besides, because I've heard this too, people asking me to do the US chart, which I have already, but I'll do it again to remind people. The US is in a tough zone right now, unsurprisingly. You know, the US will
Yeah,
never.
we're back in this astrologicals from the Civil War.
Well, that's one. Or even when you do patterns that happen every 7 years, every time Saturn is cardinal, like Aries, Capricorn, Libra, in Cancer, it's harder for this country. You can go back and check all those zones. Something is happening that is keeping people off balance and upset. And this one makes a lot of sense. So in that sense, we have to wait it out. But you know, the best thing I can say is what is curious about the scenario we're in is 2028, Saturn is in a new sign, right? So it's different at that point.
What sign is it in 2028?
Taurus. It'll go into Taurus.
Is that a little bit more
Oh
solid?
no, it's totally different than for the U.S. than Aries. You know, Taurus is a different energy. Yeah, the energy changes dramatically because the U.S. happens to have many planets in Cancer, Capricorn, Libra, Aries. It's just populated with all kinds of stuff. So if you cruise through there, you agitate everything. And then that's when you go back and you see the pandemic period, you see the period when we had that crash, you see the Iraq war, you see the period when we had a recession and that killed George H.W. Bush. You also see the period when Jimmy Carter lost to Ronald Reagan and there was terrible inflation, high interest rates. That was that. And then it got better as Saturn moved out. Before that, the Watergate period was Saturn in that range.
Oh, I remember that.
And we had to walk away from Vietnam, you know, which was really a war that went nowhere. That war accomplished nothing. It basically damaged the country's reputation. All of that is that part of the
And
chart.
our reputation is damaged again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Well, my friend, it looks like we've been on about an hour.
Yeah, well, that was good. As usual, we covered a lot of ground, and
That was fun.
let's meet again soon.
All
All right. Bye, everyone. Bye for now.
Bye for now.